Welcome to part two. Just waiting for Julian to click in. When he's ready, here we are. Pop, pop, bang. Now then, Julian. Right, then we'll park up the Conor Ben experience then, because
let's get rid of Connor.
they've got what they've wanted, haven't they?
Let's talk about some clean boxers who have got some decent names on the record, eh?
Yeah.
You're gonna don't bring up Dave Allen, mate, because there's no decent names on his record.
We're going to struggle, aren't we? Let's talk about Joshua and Wilder. They're clean. It's not happening, is it? Eddie's Saudi dreams are up in flames. Joe Gallagher's nipped in. What's gone on there?
I don't know the details of the Joe Gallagher situation. Apparently, he's landed something quite lucrative with the Saudis. And first of all, knowing Joe, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think it's refreshing for a coach and a manager, he's a manager as well, to have such an opportunity and get some of that Saudi money that everybody's talking about without actually sniffing people's asses to get there. He's just got there because he's just straight talking Joe. And I think it's great that finally you get somebody who's paid the dues and worked the backsides off, you know, been in the gym since he was a kid, a young amateur and an amateur coach and all that kind of stuff. So whatever's happened with Joe, I don't know the details, but I hope there's a load of success for Joe and his fighters. There's a load of money on a pot of gold for Joe and his fighters. And likewise, I hope there's a lot of other fake coaches out there who are green-eyed and absolutely gutted.
I can assure you there'll be a few scores evened.
Yeah, I don't know that, like I said, I don't know the details of what it is. That's probably because Joe's not stupid enough to plaster everything over social media before it's happened and until the ink's dry in the contract and until things start to move. Because other people can't hold their own water, can they? They'd be just,
Do you know that? You know all that Saudi carry on with him? All like there's John Fury, there's Del Boy. They're all running around with tea towels on their heads and
Your
up the
Excellency,
Saudis and Coogan and all that. And you know what? And Joe's just nipped in and just done the do on the quiet. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's. I mean, when you told me, obviously you didn't know the details, but you sent me I think you sent me a couple of screenshots or something. I was just smiling. I'm still smiling now because I just thought it was. I just thought it was funny. I found it.
A
I found it
screenshot. It was a screenshot on Twitter, wasn't it?
That
Joe
it was.
signing deal with Saudi bloke.
Only thing I've seen this week on boxing was that, and I just smiled and I found it massively entertaining, and I just thought, so,
I was doing cartwheels, mate. Made my year.
I was thinking about all these Instagram coaches who, you know, they spend more time looking at themselves in the mirror than they do with the fighters, and I was thinking about all these bum lickers and these matchroom bum lickers and all this clique, and Joe's just snuck in there because let's be honest. Joe was frozen out by Sky and by a matchroom for a couple of years, and he was treated pretty badly. Natasha Jonas was treated horrifically, wasn't she? Yeah. Absolutely horrifically. And all these brown noses, where are they now? I genuinely hope there's a massive pot of cash for Joe and his boxers and anybody who's involved who's paid the dues and worked the backsides off. And I'm not kissing Joe's backside because I'm 1-0 against you, Joe, as you know, buddy. I always get that little jab in, but Joe's a fantastic coach. He's the only Ring Magazine coach of the year that we've had. He's paid his dues. Good fighters.
30 odd years he's had a pro license. 30.
I mean, look at his CV. Look at the championships and the success that his fighters have had, and you a lot of jealousy around Joe, and you'd be a fool, really, wouldn't you, to dismiss him as a serious coach, but ultimately he's not been dismissed as a
serious operator now, isn't he, Joe?
That's what I'm saying.
He's just moved into the top 10 of serious operators.
I bet his phone's being read up from all these tossers who he's not heard from.
Oh yeah, I bet there's been people coming out at Woodbury. How are you doing, Joe? We ought to
Joe, if you need an hand, Joe, if you want any, do you need an hand in gym,
Joe.
Joe?
I've always had your back, Joe.
I've always spoke highly of you, Joe.
You
There'll
get
be
any
people,
miver, Joe? Ring me, pop, pop, bang.
yeah, they'll be on Facebook trying to find pictures of them and Joe Gallagher, and sharing memories on Facebook and doing YouTube interviews. All these brown noses, mate. It's just funny, isn't it? It's like Joe probably thinks it's not funny, Jules. It's quite serious, and I'm proud. But I'm proud of him. But I've been laughing, Anna, as you know, since you told me. I've just been laughing, thinking, mentioning no names, but you just know the ones, don't you? They're going to be stick right there, isn't it? People, it's going to stick right in the throat, and I think it's probably the good news story of the year, I would say so far, in what's been a bit of a turd of a year.
But kept it quiet, didn't he?
Well, whatever Joe's got going on in Saudi, I hope it's not on the same night as AJ and Wilder, because aren't they fighting in Saudi?
I don't think they're going to fight at all, are they?
Well, I think they're looking at the Dewsbury Town Hall to see if that were available last I heard, mate, because they've gone from. It was quite funny, actually, because Eddie did something a while
Oh,
ago. Recently.
Eddie's Saudi dream gone sour.
Yeah, Eddie said something about, well, yeah, all right, it's not going to happen in Saudi, but we're going to look elsewhere. And I just thought, you really are delusional. You crackers now, and the world keeps spinning, and everything's going to move on, and no one's going to be able to pull enough money to pay those fighters what they actually want. Because if you think about Anthony Joshua or Wilder, whilst we think Wilder's a favourite, loser goes nowhere, do they? So
Yeah.
you absolutely need enough money, don't you, to secure, I'm done. That's my cash out fight. And only the Saudis were prepared to pay that ludicrous amount of money for one guy who's had 3 KOs in his last 9 fights against guys who are old age pensioners, and Deontay Wilder, who's had 1 win in his last 3 and been almost decapitated in 2 of those fights. And what that 1 win were against Hellenius, who were just pretty poor. So those 2 fighters really, it might have been an half decent fight 7 years ago, but it's a voyeuristic fight now, isn't it? So I think whoever loses that fight, they want a massive guarantee. And I don't think Vegas are going to stump up that kind of money. And I don't think there's anywhere in the UK. I don't think Eddie's going to put a purse bid in for that anytime soon, do you? So it's a fight really that people are just going to talk about, and that's all it's going to be. It's going to be a pipe dream. There's no Joshua and Wilder now, mate. It's done.
Yeah. Do you think they really wanted it anyway, Eddie and Matchroom?
For a huge cash out, for an absolute massive cash out, because if you think about it from Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn's point of view, strip it right down. Where else did they have to go apart from Usyk has proven he's a much better fighter than Anthony Joshua, and AJ struggles to win a round against Usyk. Never mind beat the guy. And Tyson Fury, as we've said before, Tyson Fury, I think he could just not even train and turn up at 23 stone and give Joshua an absolute beating. Genuinely do. So where does he turn, Russell? He turns to, who does he fight? Does he fight a young, hungry Frank Sanchez
No.
for 10 million? No.
Is he impossible to match now?
Well, that's the problem. So the Wilder fight made absolute sense. Win, and you're right back up there. Get beat, and you've earned an absolute fortune, and then you just walk away into the sunset. So the Wilder fight made so much sense for both fighters, purely because the Saudis are going to throw like 30 million at them each or something, or 35, 40 million each. It made total sense. It didn't make sense from a career point of view, but from a financial cash out point of view, the winner gets another beating against Fury or Usyk, and the loser's got nowhere to go. So it's gone now. The cash won't be there to pay those fighters what they're wanting effectively they want security, don't they?
Yeah. So Joshua's hard to match now then, for what he wants.
Joshua's very difficult to match. I I don't know. I mean, the last two fights have struggled selling the venue out, haven't they? That's a statement of fact.
Yeah.
Even Eddie says, they're not coming back as quick as they did before the Usyk fight. So Joshua's very difficult to match. We've now had two really poor performances back to, well, four actually. He's had four poor performances back to back. And if you think about that for 1 minute, when was the last time AJ was really impressive? You got to go back a little bit with your memory, haven't you? So
He's got three stoppages out his last nine, and they've been Povetkin, Pulev, and Elenius.
old men. So how do you match Anthony Joshua? I don't know how you match him. So that's what I'm saying. The Wilder fight was a perfect match. Stylistically, it wasn't a perfect match, but financially, it was a great fight for him.
Could you imagine AJ if he had to fight Dubois?
I mean, that'd be a come down in itself, wouldn't it?
What, Dubois?
Imagine if AJ and Dubois traded and they hit each other at the same time, they both went down. It'd be just a case of who decided to sit down the longest, wouldn't it? Because neither of them in some of the big fights have shown that much heart, have they?
The pair of them have got the art of a process P.
They'd both take a knee, wouldn't they? It'd be just like a double count out. They both take a knee, and that'd be it. Yeah, and that's not being disrespectful. That the act of professional prize fighting takes an element of bravery, but they haven't got the Rocky Marciano, and they're not cut from that cloth, are they?
No, they're not prepared to get in there, either they don't like it.
Say what we want about Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. I mean, the beating that Fury put on him, it was actually frightening, wasn't it? Both of those
Fury in full flow, he's a monster, isn't he?
Yeah, the Fury put a massive beating on Wilder, and the guy wanted to carry on, didn't he? The guy's got no quit in him. Whatever I said about Wilder, he has got no quit in him whatsoever. Fury's got no quit in him. And that's the difference, isn't it, ultimately? You've never seen a more relief fighter in your life, other than AJ, when they stopped the Andrew Ruiz fight. He was so relieved.
What about the Derek Chisora Fury second one? That were a beating and a half on it. They give Derek in that one, wasn't it? Don Charles left him in, didn't he?
Derek's got some balls, hasn't he?
Big Top stopped it, didn't he? 11.
Yeah, I was there. He was too brave for his own good, but we don't want fighters to get hurt. Nobody wants fighters to get hurt before anybody says it's dangerous in there. But like with Dubois, this is the second time we've seen him take a knee now, isn't it, and stay down. And AJ, that, like I said, I've got two memories of Anthony Joshua. He's had a great career. He's overachieved compared to his skill set. But my two memories of Anthony Joshua, as I've just said, is the Ruiz fight the first time, when the referee was saying, "Are you all right? Are you all right? Do you want to carry on?" And he kind of didn't answer the referee. He was dying for the referee to wave it out because his heart had just gone. His heart gone. And then the first fight against Usyk in Tottenham, the last round, when he was leaning back on the ropes and he was flailing, and he was like a novice amateur having his first fight, and it was like, that's quite hard. That was quite hard to watch for me. That both of those fights were hard to watch, and yeah, it's I've said it.
Joshua fights the guy, right, who was like a top 15-ish guy. He could get beat, Julian, couldn't he?
Yeah, I think he might do, Russell. I think he's a very beatable. All you need to do to beat AJ now is you just got to take the shot and come back at him. I know that sounds easier said than done, but if you just get somebody in front of him who's got some belief and just sucks it up, he'll crumble. The guy will crumble. We've seen him after the second Usyk fight grabbing the mic. I mean, he was absolutely imploding in front of our eyes. It was a bizarre night, was that? And
Usyk sent his brain scattered, didn't he?
Yeah, he completely didn't get it, did he? He's like, but I'm stronger than you, but I don't get it. And he was like, he couldn't register. And I think he's been built up to be this.
He's had his pocket picked, hasn't he? Properly big time by Usyk, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, and he'd also been absolutely mugged by Ruiz. I mean, even the second Ruiz fight, I mean, Ruiz was
What about one of the
massive.
judges who gave it to AJ?
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Did it 115, 113 or something. It's
What on earth was that judge on? What were he on?
I think you forget the scores, don't you? I think both fights I had 9-3 actually. I think I had them literally 9-3, both of the first and second fights, but I forget. But
We didn't have it 7-5, did we, to Joshua?
I'd be interested to see what 7 rounds Joshua won. Yeah, there was nothing close about that. The good thing about that was the punditry and the radio commentary and just general people who were there. They didn't have it close, did they? The people knew that was quite a wide win for Usyk.
Yeah, listen, mate. Usyk took him to school, didn't
He did, mate. He did.
he? I think Usyk does something to him mentally. I don't know what it is. But
He's just,
they all look brainwashed after 6 or 7 rounds. It's like they don't know what's happening.
he's got brilliant feet. He's got good hands. He's quick. He sets a good pace. The one thing that I always really admire about Usyk is if you forget the technical skills just for 1 minute, he has this thing about him. Whereas if you put him under pressure and maybe even hurt him a little bit, or if you have a good round, he just comes back and goes up a gear. He goes up a notch. I think it was the first fight with AJ and Usyk, the 6th round. I think AJ had a decent 6th round. They had a decent 5th and 6th round and started to put a couple of good rounds together. And then the 7th round came out, and Usyk just put it on him straight away, put him in his place. And that's mentally breaking someone down, isn't it? You think you've had a good round and you think you're clawing your way back into the fight. And then the guy just puts it on you like that. He goes up a gear, starts letting combos go. And he did exactly the same, didn't he, with Joshua in the second fight? The 9th round, AJ had a good 9th round, fuse and ours, put pressure on him. And then the 10th round, Usyk just came out, put it on him for the last 3 rounds, didn't he?
He sort of
He
like
broke him.
computer. He sort of like computerized and stuff. I was reading something in the magazine the other day, and I agreed with what I read. He's like Tony Bellew. He tried all sorts of different things for the first 3 or 4 rounds, and then that were it. And then he just sort of went through gears, didn't he? After that, didn't
I always think as well, this is the mistake that people always make. They'll say things like, it was winning that fight.
he?
Bellew was
Was
in front.
Bellew.
People always make the mistake of not realizing that someone like if you're Alexander Usyk and you're in with Tony Bellew, you know as a fighter within 30 seconds of that first round, you know if you've got the other guy's number. So as soon as Usyk got in there and he realized with Bellew, he just took his time. It was as
Yeah.
simple as that. He just took his time. And it could have been 8 rounds down, 8 rounds to 0, and he would have still got the stoppage because he took his time. And it's like, it's just not quite the same example, but people always talk about Frank Bruno and Lennox Lewis. I was there at that when it was a birthday present at the time. And Bruno was probably in front in that fight, but you never got the impression that Lennox was going to lose that fight. Bruno was fighting out of his skin, absolutely fighting out of his skin. And Lennox hadn't quite woke up and he was being a bit lazy and he was just getting into the fight. And that's when you got that skill level and that skill set such higher than the other guy you're fighting. So people read way too much into it and they say, but it was a close fight or it was in front. I thought it was unlucky. And
Bellew were in front at the time at stoppage.
doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean it just means Usyk just gave him. He had a look at him. He had a look at him. That's all it is.
Never really looked in trouble to me, Usyk, in them rounds that they gave to Bellew.
Bellew was boxing out of his skin, and it's as simple as that. I always remember Michael Jennings when he fought Miguel Cotto, and it was the same thing. Michael Jennings boxed out of his skin for 3 or 4 rounds, and Miguel Cotto just took his time. He just took his
Like
time.
Amir Khan Canelo.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, same thing. Khan was winning some of the rounds with extra speed. Canelo never once panicked because he knew he was going to catch him. And it was the same with Usyk and Bellew. And that's what great fighters can do. People do this all the time. They watch boxing and they say, but it was in front. But it was winning the fight. Boxing's a 12-round contest. It's over 12 rounds. It doesn't matter if you're winning the 12th round or the first round. If you win convincingly and you get someone out of there, you get them out of there. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Dana White, he's gonna put UFC on same day as boxing in Vegas, Mexican Independence Day. Says he's gonna do it while ever he's in Vegas. So he reckons boxing's dying.
Well,
So
we have BT Sports now. I said before, both my sons wanted BT because they love the UFC. Kelsey's switched off now from boxing. He's not interested. My 15-year-old Joe, no interest in boxing. So they'll be getting up and they'll be watching the UFC. And I might get up with them as well, Russell. It's just ultimately, what do we want to do? We want to be entertained, don't we? We want to see good competitive fights. And if people are not getting that in boxing, they're going to get that in the octagon, aren't they? What do I prefer as a spectator sport? I prefer boxing. But do I prefer boxing as it is now more than I prefer the UFC? That's a tough question. I've watched the last two events. I'm not going over to the other side, but I've watched the last two UFC events because my lads have wanted to watch it. My son's getting into it. They've been all right, mate. They've been entertaining. It's been a
can't
good.
bring myself to watch it. I can't.
I loved it in the early days. It was fascinating, and then when it transferred over to BT 7, 8 years ago, I stopped watching it, and I've just picked it up again. I've started watching it again, and I appreciate the skill. There's a hell of a lot of skill in mixed martial arts. Of course, the boxing element's not the same
Oh, there is,
level.
mate. I've seen Tom Aspinall train and that Rico Verho even, mate. Listen, mate. It's not
Good
just
fight.
their hands, is it? They're using the legs, their elbows, and
A good friend of mine, one of my best mates, he trains an MMA fighter who happens to be Joe's coach, and he's a good kid, really really good kid. And you watch them, and they're very very clever, very very. It's not just it's not the days like it was in the early 90s when you get guys at 25 stone who were just dragged off the street. There's some pretty impressive athletic
what, Lenny
fighters.
McLean
Yeah, well, I remember the UFC 1 and 2
and
and
Roy Pretty Boy Shaw with his comb over.
I know, yeah. Well, but UFC in the early days, Horace Gracie was a great fighter, but Ken Shamrock was a great fighter. But you got fighters who were like sumo wrestlers, Emmanuel Yarbrough, and guys like that, and you got some pretty awful
Yeah,
fights.
don't forget Jack Spot and Albert Dimes on cobbles.
Yeah, this is the thing you see, but it's like Lenny McLean and Roy Shaw. They were tough men, weren't they? But they weren't professional boxers. Well, actually, Roy Shaw was, but wasn't great, was he? But
No,
UFC is a big noise right now, Russell. And this is the thing. You just said I can't bring myself to watch it. I'm watching some of it. I'm not fixated on it. I couldn't name more than three fighters. But ultimately, you just get to a stage. It's like I watch the fights I want to watch, and the rest of the stuff I'm not paying too much attention to it. I'm not a liar. If there is an half decent fight, even if it's a matchroom show and it comes on now, I might scan it. But the days of me waking up on a morning at
yeah.
3 in the morning to watch a fight, I don't do that.
And them days gone, Jules.
Yeah, them days are absolutely gone. I did it once recently, and it was that good a fight. I can't remember what it was. So there you go. That answers your question, doesn't it? I'm also 52, and I need my sleep, mate. Not that I get much, but
What about
ooh,
Joyce Sang?
well, Joyce Zhang, thankfully, is not on at 3 o'clock in the morning because I won't be getting up for that. But what I will tell you is my girlfriend Anna. So she said she's coming over on this weekend, and she said, "Is there any boxing on this weekend?" And I says, "Yes." I says, "There's the Joe Joyce and the Zhang the rematch." And she went, "Do you have to pay for it?" And I said, "Yeah, it's pay per view, and we're not near of us are tight." And she just says, "I want to go out for a few drinks." I said, "Yeah, fine." She goes, "I don't want to watch that Joe Joyce." She says he's really slow, isn't he? She goes, "It's horrible to watch him." So this is from someone who's not really a boxing fan, but who
The
watches.
Mummy. Joe Joyce, the Mummy.
Just says she goes, "I'm not watching them two." She goes, "I'm not watching Joe Joyce." She goes, "He's not very good, is he?" And that's where we're at now, isn't it? That actually is a pay-per-view fight in 2023, and that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, what do you think to me profile picture?
Amazing. Is
Paul
that
Smith,
Paul?
Paul Smith, aka son of Buddy.
Yeah, he's not. I don't really know him, but he's not the most likable of the Smiths, is he?
What Paul Smith? What when you tweet him and say, "Good looking Andre Ward fight, Paul? I'm gonna have a bet on you." You know, you never know. You get blocked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, fucking hell, Paul Smith, eh?
Well,
Smith
he's been
said,
in there. He's been in there. He's done it. I give him the respect as a good fighter.
yeah, he won a British title, didn't he, Paul Smith?
A
He
good
just
fighter.
rubbed everybody up the wrong way, didn't
Yeah. He comes across as a know-all of all know-alls, doesn't he?
he? Yeah, what do you reckon about the Wardley and Adelaide not having British title at stake? Carry on.
Well, ultimately, if that's a rule of the British Boxing Board of Control, British title fights have to take place on these shores. That's a rule.
Yeah,
And unless you change the rule, that rule will be there for a reason, won't it? Might be. I don't know. But if that's the rule, that's the rule, Russell. We got to have rules, mate. We got to have, some things are a bit outdated perhaps, but we got to have rules. And if that's the rule, that's how it is.
yeah, yeah. It's I don't know. It's Andy Ruiz calling out Wilder, Joshua saying nobody wants to fight him. Do you think Joshua could go the Andy Ruiz route? It seems only one left. Or I've heard people talking about Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker, Joshua 2, or Joshua Ruiz 3. Could you see any of them happening for Joshua, or could you see him getting beat?
I've got no desire to watch Anthony Joshua, mate. That's the truth. I was in Tenerife and I watched his last fight with Elenius, and it was a decent right hand finish. I mean, they set the guy up quite well. But apart from that, he got his face bust up, his nose bust up, and Elenius was awful. It was an awful 6 rounds. It was. I'm still scarred by the Dempsey McKean Ergovic fight. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you think, look, we talk about heavyweights all the time, don't we? And I wonder if it's time we
Is it
stopped.
really booming this division? You know, when you look at the depth.
Well, let's do a quick scan of. You've got a better memory than I have, right? Let's scan 2023. The division that's booming, the division that everybody's wetting themselves over. It's never been so good. What's been the best heavyweight fight of 2023?
Oh, second of all.
There you go, Usyk and Dubois. So Usyk's a formidable champion. So we've had, what other fights have we had? So we've had the Dempsey McKean and Hergovich fight. It was dreadful, wasn't it? We had Derek Chisora and Washington.
Johnny
Or
Fisher. We've had
we've
Fraser
had, we've
Clark and
had
Dave Allen.
we had Fraser Clark and Dave Allen, which, as I've said, not even worth
That was
talking
like a
about.
white collar, wasn't it?
It was like something you'd see outside. When I used to go out on Bradford Road Frontier and used to get your kebab at end at night, and people were falling outside Frontier. You saw fights like that then, didn't you? A couple of big lads going at it, scrapping over some girl, and a few handbags got thrown, and there was sometimes more entertaining than the Dave Allen fight and Fraser Clark fight. But that was poor. But like I said, the heavyweight. What meaningful competitive fight have we had then?
All right, then. Well, let's go through top list here then. Usyk at top. What's he doing?
Usyk is
Ergovic.
first fight he's had in a year with that, wasn't it, really, against Dubois. So
Yeah.
it's not great. It's not great, is it? Let's be honest. Love him or not, it's a poor year. If your marquee win in the last 12 months is Danny Dubois, it's not great.
Then you've got Joshua these last two fights shockers, weren't they?
Dreadful, dreadful opposition, dreadful
Tyson
performances.
Fury's his last two fights shockers. He's now fighting on Ghana, so he's doing no.
Tyson, yeah,
Wilder's
boxing.
done no in a year. Wilder has he?
Nope.
Oh, What about Tyson?
So you see where we're getting from now. So Tyson's not boxed this year. Um, he's fighting whoever he's fighting. He's fighting a guy who's never to fight professional boxing match.
DeBar's just fought and been beat.
Yep.
Zhang's fighting Joyce.
Thanks.
Dylan White's banned. Ergovic's
Yep.
waiting for Usyk. Chizora's finished. Martin Bakola's a bogeyman. Jared Anderson, he's just fought. He's next in line. And you got Joseph Parker and Takam, Tony Yoka, Miller, Wardley, and Yui.
So it's a threadbare bunch. If boxing's booming, the heavyweight division's on fire. It's a year to forget, isn't it? If you look at it like that.
Well, it's there. The talent's there, but they're not fighting.
Well, then it's no use, no ornament, is it?
Or they're all there, but they're not getting in with each other. They're not active, are they? Nobody's active.
Too much money in heavyweight boxing. You can sit now and wait for something to happen, get a couple of big paydays, and then you're set for life. You're absolutely set for life. Pride doesn't seem to mean much. And even if you like Alexander Usyk and you do want the big fights and you're prepared to take 30% of a cut, you're still not guaranteed to get those fights, are you? So like I said, we've just broke it down the year that was, and you've gone through every single name there. It's either not a great bunch of fighters or the ones who are decent aren't fighting. So it's a probably as bad as it's been since the boring days of when Klitschko, who was a gentleman and he was a great ambassador for sport, but let's be honest, it was a painful few years, wasn't it, when Klitschko was champion? If fought regular,
it's the same with Tyson though. Now this is painful, isn't it?
Well, Tyson's last meaningful win was when
Wilder,
the guy had already dominated previously. So
yeah.
It's not great, but is it?
But do you know Tyson? Do you think he might be on the slide? Do you think Wilder's power's that good, or is it a bad finisher, or Tyson's recovery powers? What do you think?
I think Tyson's on the slide, and I'll tell you why. I don't think it's anything to do with Wilder's power. Lifestyle, inactivity, all this kind of thing. It just doesn't do any fighter any good. So Tyson Fury, for my money, is still the best heavyweight in the world. But that's based on that's based on the last really good performance I saw from him, which was, probably Dillian White. White was rubbish, but it was a dominant performance, and Fury technically was very good. But this is a while ago now, isn't it? But Dillian White didn't give him any movement, did he? He didn't give him anything to worry about. So we don't really know what Tyson's got left, but we can't ever forget that time he had out of the ring, the damage it is to his body, putting all that weight on, drinking heavily, by his own admission, taking drugs. We had a doping ban as well, but some not great performances when he did come back in the early days. But inactivity is a killer, Russell. I keep saying it. Inactivity is a killer, but it's a bigger killer when you don't look after yourself in between fights. And he keeps saying he trains every day, but at the Ngannou press conference, when he took his shirt off, he didn't look like a fighter to me who trained every day. He looked like a fighter who really neglects his body. And his diet's probably horrendous. His diet will be horrendous. And I always think of Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton was 31, 32, and he was shot to bits, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was a big drinker and all kinds of other stuff Hatton was doing. You can't live like that, mate. You can't be inactive and live like that and eat crap and then brutalize your body through training camps and remain sharp and remain active and have a great prime. Fighters who had really long careers and long primes, the Holmeses and Joe Lewis's and Ali's, they were active all the time. They were always in shape. They were always active, and they didn't have time to get bored. This is
Bernard
Fury's.
Hopkins.
Yeah, this is Fury's problem. He has too much time on his hands, so that they end up in the pub, don't they? They end up doing whatever they end up doing, and they've got too much money and too much time in his hands, and it doesn't do them any good.
You think you don't want to fight?
Sometimes you do things from memory, don't you? And I'm going to summarize, because I know we're getting to the end now. Tyson Fury's career in boxing might be a little bit like my relationship with boxing now as a boxing fan, no longer a coach. I still watch boxing and talk about boxing on your channel, but I still watch it because it's habitual. I'm doing it from memory. It's what I've always done. I've watched boxing since I was 7, 8, 9 years old. And you know what the truth is, Russell? This might sound quite harsh. I don't really enjoy it. When I have a real moment and look in a mirror and say, do you really enjoy boxing? Do you really enjoy boxing now, Jules? I think probably not. Nowhere near what I used to when I used to get goosebumps watching Tommy Hearns walk to the ring. You know, oh, electric. Watch the big fights. It was electric. And I think Tyson Fury is the same, but as a fighter, I think he's got that much money and that much fame, and he's got a big family, and he clearly adores his kids and adores his wife. He's just, does he really love training and fighting, or is it just habitual because he's done it all his life and he's scared what will happen if he no longer has boxing? And maybe that's a bit too deep what I've said there, but sometimes we do things because it's what we've always done, and we're scared if that's no longer there, what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I always go a bit deep, don't I? But
No, you're all right, mate.
I don't think Tyson Fury's hunger, and he's also, let's not forget, whether we criticise Fury or not, he's right at the top of the mountain, isn't he? He's been there before. When you're at the bottom of the mountain, what you want to climb, that gives you hunger, passion, and the spoils and the riches are worth the pain and the suffering. And once you get there, it's hard to stay there. And then he lost it all, and he saw the people having what was his, like Joshua and Wilder having what was his, and he's like, I got to come back. I got to do this. And he's come back. And let's be honest, none of us, I don't care what anyone says, none of us expected Tyson Fury when he was, what, 25 stone, however big he was. None of us expected him to come back and do what he's done. We didn't. I never
No.
thought Fury would fight again. So not only has the hunger to do it once and be successful, he's now done it twice, and he's got an enormous amount of money. So maybe the Ngannou fight is just something that just excites him because it's crazy money, and he just fancies it because he's bored of all the other stuff. I don't know, mate, but I don't truly believe that Tyson Fury loves boxing
I don't.
like he used to. I don't think he does, and that
Okay,
do
okay.
I do believe, mate, quickly, I do believe if you don't want to be the heavyweight champion of the world, you should give your belt up and you should let somebody else fight for it.
Agreed. Okay, okay. You take care, Julian.
Nice talking to you, buddy. Thank you,
Cheers, mate.
everybody. See
Bye.
you, mate.
Bye. Well, that was Julian. Going a bit deep there towards the end. For all you people who like that kind of thing. Yeah, I think he was speaking honestly there. Tyson should vacate, shouldn't he, really? Let somebody else fight for the belt. That's my motto on that. So let's move on if you don't want to fight. Okie doke. Peace out. Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. Oh, yeah,